I'm Andy Belser, Director of the School of Theater, Film, and Television here at the U of A in Tucson. And I am a certified Feldenkrais practitioner. As we go, I will introduce you to Feldenkrais through the work, because intellectually you could understand it and still not quite get it until you do it. I will give you a few guiding principles here. One is, you're teaching your brain. You're not really doing any stretching. And the goal is not to do something correctly. In fact, doing it incorrectly is good information for you. If I had to use a phrase for this, I would call it mindful movement. It's extremely slow. In fact, you could imagine the movement, and that would be enough to get your brain to understand the movement, because that activates the motor and premotor centers of the brain. So the slowness of it, I can't see you at home, but I will continually remind everyone here in the class to be slow. Okay? And there's no wrong way to do it, and as we go through these 8 weeks of classes, you'll catch on. I'll probably introduce the form of awareness through movement classes, each section in case there are new people coming. So stand just as they are behind your mat. And this one will be almost always laying down for this class. And just let your hands drop to your side and close your eyes and tune into your awareness of your body. And notice, do I feel like my weight is generally on one side or another a little more? How do I feel in my hips and legs? Is there any action happening there? Like you might call it tension. Are any muscles engaged? And notice the position of your head. In general, it could be that you imagine that your head is to the left or to the right, like your right ear might be a little closer to your right shoulder, or your left ear might be a little closer to your left shoulder. And your head might be tilted as if it's pointing to the left or the right. You can open your eyes to see this. So you may not even notice that at all. And your head might be feeling like, is it forward of your spine or is it really back? Just notice these things. There's no right or wrong here. And now just around the area that you're in, like right around your mat, just take a walk and feel the swing of your arms. All we're doing right now, go ahead and take a little walk around. All we're doing right now is marking what are the sensations of walking for me before I do this lesson. Because occasionally I will have you get up and walk. So feel, how does my chest feel in walking? How do my hips feel? What's my foot contact on the floor? And go ahead and come back to your mat and lie down comfortably on the mat on your back. I will leave a couple of times for questions, maybe during the lesson, definitely at the end of the lesson, and that's when I'll pause and somehow have Julia read if there's anything on the chat. So hands comfortably laying beside you on the floor, and now we're going to do what's called a lying scan. Feel the weight of your whole self on the floor. And one of the amazing things about the nervous system is we can take our attention and spotlight different areas of ourselves. So put a spotlight on your left leg and scan up and down the left leg. Where are you touching the floor, and where is it rising off the floor? And then do the same thing with the right leg. And notice the difference in sensation between the left leg and the right leg. And if you somehow put like a laser beam on your bottom of your foot and pointed it out the toes, can you sense, is the angle of your feet, the left foot and right foot, exactly the same? Or does one laser shoot in a slightly different direction? I can see, with the 5 people here, every single one of you has a different direction that your feet are aimed. That's not wrong. That's just the way you use yourself. And your whole self is oriented in that direction. And often the angle of the feet has as much to do with where your hips are and where your chest is. So it's not something we're going to really work on or fix. In fact, we don't do any fixing in Feldenkrais. We simply do the lesson, and things begin to take care of themselves. So now put your attention in the back of your waist, at the very small of your back, and feel, do you feel any sense of pressure moving slightly left or slightly right? Between your waist and your hips? Are you oriented slightly left or right? And in the small of your back, which is where a lot of people, the lumbar region, which is where a lot of people, including me, get a lot of pain, can you feel any of that space rising off the floor? And then trace your spine up toward your head. Feel where there's the most pressure in your spine on the floor. Probably somewhere behind your heart. It depends on how different people are oriented. But then your spine's going to rise back off the floor around your neck, somewhere around your shoulders. And now feel your head again lying on the floor. And open your eyes and feel, am I looking directly above me, or is my head oriented slightly to the left or right? Again, no need to fix anything here. And you might today simply not be able to feel any difference here. That's fine. We often say, where's my nose pointing? Because where our nose is pointing, our eyes typically are pointing. And now take your attention and bring it to your shoulders. It's possible that one shoulder, maybe both shoulders, feel as if they're lifting off the floor. One might feel more settled into the floor. This is something that in this particular lesson you may actually feel a difference. We'll do one of these scans at the end again. One shoulder, as you sense the difference between your shoulders, one shoulder might feel closer, like your right shoulder might feel closer to your right ear, or your left shoulder might feel closer to your left ear. And then sense down your arms, however they're lying. What's the difference in the sensation or the angle or the weight or the sort of postural attitude, like the direction of your arms? All the way down the length, including the wrists and the fingers. Like, is one hand bunched up a little more in the fingers than the other? Again, no need to correct or do anything different here. And now notice, we're going to notice the rotation of the hands. So If your hands are facing toward the sky, roll them toward the floor. If your hands are already facing toward the floor, roll them toward the sky, slowly. And notice what feels more comfortable. And notice in this rotation of the hands, you may feel that sensation. Just do it a few times, very, very slowly. You may feel a few sensations in your shoulders. Rotating the hands. So our arms and our legs both can rotate. They do it very differently. The shoulder apparatus, it's not one joint, is really different than the hips. So our arms can rotate quite differently, but rotating the hands always involves something in the shoulder. I mean, I suppose you could rotate your hands without doing anything. You'd almost have to stiffen your upper arm to do that. Now notice, go ahead and go back to where your hands were. And notice the quality, depth, rate of your breathing. And notice, how do you know that you're breathing? Now, it's a strange question, but did the first thing you notice was air moving? People here are in masks. I suspect you at home are not in masks. But notice, can you feel it in your chest? In your belly? Maybe in your hips? If this long-legged lying is uncomfortable for you, simply stand your feet, by which I mean bend your knees and put your feet flat on the floor comfortably. And you can do that at any time, particularly during this lesson. It's really not about length in the feet here. So also notice in the breathing your spine. And you might not be able to notice any movement in your spine. But what we're sensing is the motion of breathing in the torso. And not doing anything to change it, just noticing it. As you breathe, if I put a marble, or somehow you imagined a drop of water hitting just above your breastbone, like up near your throat, would it roll to the right or to the left, which is an orientation of the chest and shoulders? And now go back and notice if you were to if you said that marble's going to roll to the left, is your head also pointing to the left? Or sometimes people's head is in a different direction than their chest. So the organization of the head and chest is an interesting thing to notice throughout these 8 weeks. All right, so that's the scan. The scan, we'll do a scan every day of these lessons, different kinds of scans. So you can do this lesson with your eyes open or closed. It doesn't matter. When I ask you to do a movement, and I'll repeat this, see if there's a difference in doing the movement on the out-breath or doing the movement on the in-breath. And in between each movement, I'm going to ask you to just take a little pause, a couple seconds, 2-3 seconds pause. So now orient your hands so the palms are facing the floor. And your palms can be just a few inches away from your hips. And now take the right hand and ever so slowly slide it away from your body, ever so slowly, and notice where it gets harder. And then wherever it gets harder, or somehow you feel a little bit of, tension, stop and come back and do it again. So again and again, we're sliding the right hand away from the hips on the floor. Coming back to the hips with the hand can be a little bit faster. Really, we're not as interested in them coming back as we are in the going away. And now notice, from where am I initiating this movement? And there is no right answer to this. It could be that you feel it coming from like your elbow, like you're pivoting on your elbow. It could be that you're sort of really stressing out the hand to move from your hand. It could be that you're orienting the whole movement from the shoulder, somewhere upper arm or shoulder. And continue the trajectory of this so it just keeps going further and further, taking a rest between every movement. And if you're watching the people here on the ground, they're going at a great slow speed. Over and over again. Just draw it out and back. And back. And again, the movement back toward you can be a little faster. We're not as interested in the path back as we are in the path away. Keep it on the floor, though. Sometimes there's a tendency to want to lift the arm to do this motion. That's extra. And notice in this trajectory of moving the arm out away from the body, there's going to be a point where with the hand focused or oriented toward the floor, there's going to be a point where you really have to stop. It feels like there's something stopping you. And in fact, there is in the way your physiology happens. Again, keep it sliding on the floor and not lifting off the floor.
Hi, Andy. This is Julia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I was wondering, we have a few requests. Are you able to show or demonstrate any other positions that does not require on the ground? We have a few.
Oh, sure. I'll show it from here.
Thank you.
You could do this sitting. You could also do it standing. So you could do it sitting just like this. So this would be the floor behind me. Like this. Or you could do it standing. Just like this. Okay? Any other questions, Julia?
Thank you. No, that was great. Just right now we're seeing some questions about alternatives. So thank you for showing.
Always, always, always we can find an alternate. Those are the two best for this. Okay, let's take a rest with the hand back by the side of the hips. And now notice from the right side of your chest to the left side of your chest, is there any difference at all? And there might not be at this point. Any difference in the breathing? All right, let's start again. Drawing the hand out, and a lot of you are sort of getting close to where your hand is stopping something like would be shoulder height. Like just below your shoulder or around your shoulder. Go ahead and draw that right hand out again. And notice what happens when it stops, when it comes to that stopping point. You feel that? There's some resistance there that's stopping it. And notice what happens if the next time you come to that spot, go back to your hip and draw it back out. If the next time you come to that spot, if you turn your hand toward the sky, you will be able to move past that spot. If you just continue on that same circle, snow angel trajectory. You feel that? You can move it. Now, you'll still have to go slow, like you are here. You'll still have to go slow because your arm is still, and your shoulder mechanism is still getting used to, where am I here? So then return to the side, and when you return, put your palm back on the ground, and then go back through the whole thing. And then just keep going on that trajectory. Like, where does it go from there in the circle? Okay, so now, 3 or 4 times, without a lot of effort and without any real goal orientation, like without trying really hard, do it a little faster. So it's almost like a sigh. You're sort of going, ah. Just allow that hand to come out, turn, and keep going. And then back, 3 or 4 times. Notice, where does the hand turn? Where and when does the hand want to turn or need to turn? That's it. Just a little faster. And maybe even go a little faster than that. Just to feel what is easy movement here. And when am I really putting a lot of effort into this? And where can I be really easy? So now, after you turn your hand, keep going in that circle, and we'll go a little slower again. Keep the circle going above your head. So it really is making a snow angel all the way above your head, although we are in the desert, so. And then notice you're going to come to a stop there again, where you can't go any further with your hand oriented in that position. If you turn it again in some direction, you'll be able to keep going. That's right. It's going to be back toward the floor. Notice, if you turn it again, you'll be able to continue to the other side of your head. That's it. You got it. It's quite natural. It's nothing to figure out. Your body knows how to do this. So where do you want to turn when you go up there? So it's going to turn twice. It's going to turn on the way out once, and then it's going to turn again to find your right hand to the left side of your head. And now go ahead and do that whole motion a few times, a little more quickly. And notice, part of you is starting to come off the floor. Your right shoulder is starting to want to come off the floor. Maybe your head is even turning. So I'm going to drop something in here that we don't usually do in Feldenkrais. I'm going to drop a reality of what I'm teaching you to do. I'm teaching you to get out of bed in a really easy way. So take a rest with your hands to your side. we're going to add one more element on the right side. And this one, I'm not going to give you a lot of direction, but I'm simply going to talk you through it and then let your whole self, body, mind, figure it out. And that is stand your feet, bend your knees. Go ahead, bend your knees and stand your feet. And then notice that during this movement, you may find your knees tilting one way or another. And I will give you a hint here that when your hand gets over your head, it'll help the movement if your knees tilt in the direction your hand's going, which would be to the left. Yeah? Okay, so go ahead, draw the hand out. Slowly, you know the direction we're going. Just notice what happens with my knees. They might begin to tilt in one direction. And then where do they want to tilt to help that hand motion to go? Where might they tilt to the left to help that hand keep going? The head can also move. Again, what I'm really teaching you to do here is to roll to the left. So remember the two turns of the hand. The hand turns once, somewhere around shoulder height, and the hand turns again over the head. And then the head can turn, and the knees can turn. That's it. You're figuring it out on your own. And this is what babies do. We put them on their backs. We don't teach them this lesson. But they figure out how to roll over and then roll over again. So do this trajectory a couple times and notice, how does my hand turning organize with my legs? Yeah. So there's like a whole body thing going on. And while you're at it, notice one more thing here. Keep going in this motion, and some of you are picking up the pace just a little bit. That's fine, to get the whole movement happening. Notice which side of the chest, the rib cage, is opening and which side is closing. And feel that opening and closing. So now let's intentionally pick up the pace just a little bit so it's like, whoa. There's almost like a whooshing effect to it. Again, you can go the pace you want, but let the knees come into the movement, the arm come into the movement. Yeah, just let it be comfortable, like you're laying in bed in the morning. Yep. It's a very natural thing. The knees can help. There's nothing you need to do right or wrong here. Some part of the chest is opening and another side of it is closing, the ribs on the side particularly. And a little even faster, just a sweeping motion. All the way over to the left. All the way over. That's it. The hand turns twice. If it's not turning twice, you're probably stopping yourself, because the rotation of the shoulder and the shoulder blades really make to allow this hand to come over the head easily, the hand turns twice. You got it. And for each of us, it turns slightly different shapes. You can even roll all the way over to your side if you like. If you feel those knees starting to go, the knees will help you roll all the way to the side. So now, if your mat was the edge of a bed, you could drop your knees over and then drop your feet onto the floor, and you'd be up. Almost. We'll get to that later. Couple more sweeps. That's it. And let the arm drop back to the side now. And now, by doing one more of these motions, bring yourself to your side, and then gently bring yourself to your knees or sitting or whatever, and then bring yourself up to your feet. So do it easily. Just come to the side. Yep, come all the way to the side. Yep, come up to your knees or butt or whatever you'd like, and then stand. It's a very easy way to get up. And then take a walk around and compare it to when you started. Probably something feels different now. Your right side might feel like your right arm might feel longer or different. And I'm going to ask, I would ask you at home this, but I'm going to ask in the class here, what does feel different in you? You can say it. You feel longer on the right side? Mm-hmm. You do too, India? Heavier on the right side? Mm-hmm. Looser on the right side? Anything in your feet? You feel weight. Now, how can that be? How can I feel weight in my feet? I didn't do anything with my feet. How about your breathing? Even? We barely paid much attention to the breathing. But this simple motion allowed me to organize myself differently, and it changed a lot, right? So now you feel uneven. Like if I sent you home this way, do you feel like you'd be limping around one-sided in circles, maybe? So when you're ready, you feel off kilter. I often feel that. I feel like I'm sort of ready to go on my right side, and my left side's a little, I don't know, sometimes stiff or something. By the way, if you have lower back pain, this is a wonderful exercise to use because it really doesn't do much in the lumbar region. It does most of it here and here. So you're reorganizing your chest and your arms, and your back will follow. Okay, so lie back down, same way. And now I'm going to ask you, Julia, I think I'd better take a moment for questions if there are any from home.
Hi, no, the only questions we're seeing is to make sure for next week moving forward, we'll definitely add a participant seated to show different options. But
yep, I will always do that.
Open if anyone has questions about Andy, the method, anything that Andy's covered in the past 35 minutes or so.
Great. And just because, so can you see his feet if I point to him? Can I use you, Ron? Yeah. Okay, good. When I talk about the laser beams coming off the feet, do you see the angle? Can you feel your right foot more outward? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And his foot is not just turned out, it's also, I don't know if you can feel this, but it's turned toward your feet more. This one is more gathered. It's more like bunched. I don't know if you can feel that sensationally. I honestly have never worked with a client or a person, a student, whose feet were the same. You can see it here, and you're all going to feel this. Feldenkrais will start to even those things out. Okay, so now we're going to repeat this on the left side, and I'm going to walk you through it, but feel free to get a little bit off of my directions to suit yourself. The only thing I'll ask is, don't go too fast. So left side, palms down, draw the left hand on the floor, slide it away, but let your left side have the same generous amount of time you gave to the right side. So let yourself really sense where does the motion stop and then come back to your side. Don't rush into the goal. And if you do rush into, like, I know what I'm doing, let's call that a habit of mind. That's your mind saying, I got to get to this fast. I know what I'm doing, I got to get to it. But here you don't have to get to it. Just keep the arm going out and coming back. And then notice when it goes out, where does your left hand want to turn to make this possible? Slide the hand on the floor without much lifting. And if you're lifting, notice that you're lifting. If you're lifting the hand off the floor, you're adding effort. And that is also a habit. It's probably a physical habit, but it's definitely a habit of mind too. So when that hand comes out, where does it need to turn for the trajectory of the snow angel to continue? The same thing happens if you're sitting or standing. The rotation of the arm, how about if I sit over here and show you? Just keep going here in the class. The rotation, if you're sitting, there we go. The rotation of the arm, I can face it toward my back, which would be the floor. You can move it. At some point around shoulder height, it's going to face the front of me. And then somewhere, in order to keep going, it'll face behind me again. And I might begin to even feel that turning. Where can the head turn here? Where in the organization of this movement does it help the head to turn? Yep, and you can put your knees up if you want. You can begin to include the knees, the legs. And when I do this movement, I start with a little tilt of the legs in the opposite direction. It's almost like a little push off the floor when my knees are bent. And then my legs tilt, what would it be, to the right when my hand's over my head with the left hand. So take a little rest at some point with your hand down at your side. Your rest can be with your feet standing, knees up, or legs long, either way. And then go ahead and continue the movement with the left hand. Moving it out, away from you, turning the hand. Yeah, and find your own rhythm of this. Maybe there's a way in which you go sort of pick up the pace, yep, and you see over here, she's starting to turn her whole self. So your head is going to be involved in that turning somehow. You got it. So feel free with your legs standing to with your knees up and your feet standing, feel free to let your legs help to direct this. And feel the chest opening on the side here. Feel that. And feel it compressing on the other side. If you open one side of your chest, the rib cage, the other side has to compress. It's the way we're made. So do a few on the left side just a little bit faster to feel this, the trajectory of the motion, the whole length of it. And just feel it as easy. There's, in some ways, the beauty of Feldenkrais is there is no wrong. You learn from the mistakes. If you're a baby and you whack your head on the crib, you'll probably figure out a motion pattern to not do that again. So figure out how your knees and when your knees might want to move, tilt, to help this happen. And how far do you want to go? Do you want to go all the way to your side? Take a little rest. I may leave a little more time for questions today just because it's the first class. But we're not done yet with the lesson. So now we're going to start on our left side, and we're going to do one on the left with the knees tilting and everything, and then one on the right. We're just going to go back and forth. It's like we're going to sweep our arm and tilt our legs and like almost get it so that your body is teaching you how to do it, teaching your brain how to do it. Isn't that a funny thing to say? Your body is teaching you. Wouldn't your body be you? So one to the left, one to the right. And now you can go a little faster, but it's not really about speed. It's a little bit about just ease and figuring out, when do my knees come back? And then my knees just continue, and then I do it there, and I roll to the side. And how far do you want to go to the side? That's up to you. So you could roll all the way to your side. In order to do that, your knees are going to have to get involved in this. And even a little faster, my teacher in New York would say, blup, 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 blup. I always thought it was the funniest thing. He was sort of giving us an indication of some kind of beat. That's it. And the knees can become involved too. The knees, yep. Let it get sloppier. Somehow like, there's no points awarded for this. There's no right or wrong. And that arm, it's going to have to come over your face if you're going to, the top of your arm is going to have to come over your face if you're going to turn all the way. Blup, blup, blup. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes of the lesson left. Just let your legs go long and just take a rest for a moment. So this last section of the lesson is something I'm going to give you to practice at home. Don't feel like you have to somehow accomplish this today. But a very few, I would say, of the 2,500 or 3,000 Feldenkrais lessons that Moshe Feldenkrais developed end with a very satisfying thing you can do. And this is one of them. So we're gonna sweep the right hand, but take and the thing we're gonna end up figuring out how to do is sit up. And it's a really easy sitting up. And I'm gonna give you a couple of pointers here. The first pointer is you've got to take your left elbow and bend it just a little bit so that it's like crooked, but the hand palm stays down. So that palm goes closer to the hip. What we're setting up here is an ability for that when that hand comes over is to sort of stand up on the elbow. The second super important point here is Most of us want to direct this motion once we get around to sitting with our head. And that will actually get in the way of sitting up. So you want your head to go down toward the floor. So go ahead and sweep the right hand and feel, sweep it around with the left hand this way, left arm, and feel like if I roll over, I could keep rolling. If you don't get there the first time, don't worry. But you're going to, stand your feet on this. Stand your feet. You're going to need your legs here, I'm sorry. So go ahead, take the right hand. Yep, and you're going to come to a stopping point like India did there. You feel that stopping point? That's where most people want to raise their head. Did you feel yourself wanting to go, I got to get there? Yeah, don't get there. I did it many, many times, and all the rest of the class in New York was getting it, and I was like feeling stupid and didn't get it. But keep your head down. And you just sweep right up. And figure out how fast it is to do it. And then on the way back, repeat the whole thing, just in reverse. This is why I say, figure this out at home. But the two things you're going to need to do are not lift the head. Now, you feel how you lifted the head? Yeah, so it makes it harder. Because when you lift your head, you're engaging your spine. What you do when you lift your head, can you do that again and lift your head? What happens when you lift your head is you break the circle and you just go this way. What we want to have happen is to go all the way this way, wide, and just keep that head going down. You'll figure it, your body will figure it out. Down, 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 down. There you go. See, it's much easier. Now, try it on the other side. So you're going to crook your right arm and slide your left arm. Might be easier on this side, it might be harder. That's it. And Dia, you're using your knees much more now. You feel that? Yeah. That was a little easier for you. Yeah? Keep your head down. Notice that where my head goes, where we can't lift our head without tensing the muscles along our spine. So we don't really need to bring the spine into a lot of action. We need to bring it into a lot of flexible movement to do this. That's it. And now let's do a one and then the other side. You can come up to sitting on one side. You can come up to sitting on the other side. This might take a little bit of momentum, helpful. You feel yourself lift your head there, India? Yep. And that's not wrong. You just don't need to do all of that action. Slide to the other side, sit up. Slide to one side, sit up. Slide. That side's hard for you, you see? That's something that I notice in myself too, is that it's harder on one side than the other. Slide up, come up sitting to one side, come up sitting. If you're not getting this at home, trust me, probably a fourth of my class of 80 people in New York got it. And I did it at home forever and ever and ever, and then went, oh, I got it. There you go, India. It's easier on that side. So we have about 10 minutes left, 9 minutes left. And what I'd like to do is just let you lengthen your legs. And let's repeat the whole self lying scan. And notice what's different. And class here of 5, if you could say what's different, that would be helpful, and then I'll repeat it in case they can't hear it. Do you feel anything different in your contact with the floor, in your breathing? Yeah.
My shoulders feel more even across
So her shoulders feel more even across the floor.
Left side feels more grounded.
Left side feels more grounded. How about your neck and head? Anything there? Your feet, and Dia says her neck and her head feel a little more aligned.
Yeah, my neck feels less curved.
Her neck feels less curved.
Breathing more even.
Breathing's more even. So now you figure out the way you want to get up. I just taught you a way to get up, but I'm not going to stand over you and say, now you got up wrong. You figure out how you want to get up, but rise, roll, somehow slide yourself over to one side, whichever side's easiest, and rise to your feet. And now let's do a standing scan. And let's do the same thing here. Is there anything different in standing? Or walking? So go ahead and walk around if you'd like, or just stand. And you can say again, just so we have some things coming back to the people at home. More even weight, left to right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel gravity.
She says she feels gravity. More open in the chest.
Feel a little taller.
Feel taller. That's interesting, isn't it? Anything in walking? The quality of the swinging of the arms or the... More relaxed.
My arms feel a bit more connected to my core.
Her arms feel more connected to her core. Okay, so return to your mat. You can stand, sit, lie down, whatever you like. Julia, I'm just going to let this be an open time for questions in the last 6 minutes here. It's 10:54.
Absolutely.
And you guys can
So
ask questions too. You can sit, stand, lie down, whatever you like.
We've had some respondents let us know that their back feels more relaxed, they feel more open. It's been a great alternative to yoga.
Right.
They did have a question, is it okay to lay on a thin piece of foam versus yoga mat? Yes, that's
Yeah,
fine.
of course. Yeah. Get yourself comfortable. By the way, people mentioned yoga. I will say Feldenkrais works perfectly with a yoga practice. You will figure that out on your own. I'm not going to be teaching it, but there's a national class going on right now by, I think her name, Carol Kress, Kress. You could sign up for it. I'm sure it's like $20 or something per time, but it's yoga and Feldenkrais together. Other
Now, will
questions?
future sessions also involve a lot of shoulder work? We have a few participants that have some shoulder issues.
Yep. No. I mean, I think this is the only one I chose that really involves shoulder, but let me say something about pain or if you have a shoulder issue. You with a shoulder issue, like a locked shoulder or a shoulder injury or anything, do it to the extent you can do it. Like I usually say, just figure out how to do it, even if you can't do what I'm asking you to do. But always stop short of pain. And even though, the habit of mind might be to get frustrated there, to say, I can't do it. But the reality is, there's a lot you can do. About half of my class in New York were very seasoned physical therapists, working at like Cedars-Sinai and Kettering and other really high-end hospitals. They were working with people who had had strokes and cancer and all sorts of things. So they are learning to work with people with cerebral palsy in a lot of difficulty and finding incredible ranges of movement. But the habit of mind is in Feldenkrais, it's not about constriction, it's about how can I move with the body I have. Other questions?
Can you give us a little background on like what Feldenkrais is, or like
Sure.
it's been around?
So the question is, what is Feldenkrais? A little bit of background and how long it's been around. It's a little hard to say how long it's been around. Moshe Feldenkrais grew up in, it's either, I think it's Poland, and when he was like 14, because of the pogroms in the teens, early part of the 20th century, he walked to Palestine. I know, at 14. And he was looking at, there was a lot of Jewish people coming to the homeland there at that time. And there was a lot of fighting in the streets between Arabs and people who were Jewish. But the people who were Jewish were not allowed to have weapons. They weren't allowed to have swords or guns or anything like that. So they had to learn to defend themselves. So he took up teaching young Jewish men and women how to defend themselves in the streets. And then he learned judo. And he quickly, in like the 20s, he learned that a lot of people were being killed because they were doing a defensive move. And in that defensive move, they were getting killed. So he was trying to find people in judo. You don't retreat to go forward. You simply move. And he borrowed that from judo. And Feldenkrais is really credited with introducing judo to Europe from Japan. In the 30s and 40s, in World War II, he was interred, as many people were, in a prisoner of war camp. This one was in Scotland. And he was there with a lot of scientists. So Feldenkrais was a physicist and an engineer. And what he figured out was he was teaching them how to move. And how to move with the most economy and ease. That developed into a practice in London, where he started to take on patients who had, many of them had like cerebral palsy or other brain, what we consider brain injuries. And he started to teach people. And I would say the Feldenkrais practice as we know it now dates to around the early 50s. And then he moved back to different places in Israel. And he developed it. Now it's worldwide. So the practice, it has two parts to it. One is called awareness through movement, which is what we're doing and all we're going to do. And the other is a one-on-one practice where a practitioner moves you, and that's called functional integration. In many continents and countries, Europe, Australia, some parts of Asia, this is covered by insurance. United States is a little bit away from that, but not so far. Like there's been a lot of study being done on the neurological truths. Feldenkrais really was way ahead of his time in understanding how the brain works. So that's why we're teaching it in a medical building, because this work really is used very much for the connection. When the connection is lost between the brain and the body, or there's an injury, this is huge. Therapeutic. Okay. It's 11 o'clock. Thank you. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you all the volunteers working on the class today. And we will see everyone next Tuesday at 10 a.m.
And next Tuesday is another lying down session.
Great. We'll put that in the notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day.
Bye.